The moel of our middle son, whose name is Harav Meir Brandsdorfer. He was the member of the Badats, may he rest in peace, and we are very close. So once someone asked him a question as a posek, as the prominent luminary Torah scholar in Yerushalayim, the following halachic question. The fellow was a member of the community who, unfortunately, his mother-in-law was ill, and he asked the kollel, the group of people who study every day, to commit themselves for a certain period of time to study for her speedy recovery. It was this time, which is the era of Ben Azmanim, the era of the summer vacation, and it was extraordinary request because people usually at that time taking the family for vacation, doing things, but they invent a special project for Ben Azmanim for this time, for the group of students to study during the summer vacation, and the goal was in memory of, in the speedy recovery of that fellow's mother-in-law, and they have at the end of the summer supposed to have a test, etc., etc. Unfortunately, it turns that at the middle of the study, at the middle of the summer, she passed away. And the question posted to Rabbi Brandsdorfer, does he have a t'nai, does he have a condition or not? Do you call it nidrei ta'ut? Do you make it a vow that it was a mistaken or not? Because originally speaking, when that fellow committed himself for that large sum amount of money to pay for those who study during vacation time, was with the intent, with the belief that that study will bring her a speedy recovery. Since she passed, is still he have to follow that commitment or not? So today, part of our discussion, we're going to post this question and how the late Rabbi Meir Brandsdorfer respond. So here we are on page 68, Tractate Nedarim, page 68, 7 lines from the top of the page. Our original subject of yesterday and day before yesterday, Daf, is Nidrei Arusa, meaning we explained that as far as the halacha is concerned, there are different status of a girl. When she is a baby or minor, up to the age of bat mitzvah, the 12, she is part, biblically speaking, part of the father's domain. For example, the father is responsible to annul vows if she committed herself to something, because she is halachically, but the Torah law, she is under the father's roof. Then it turns to a new status, that it's the na'ara, which is from 12 years, 1 day, for 6-month period, which is the development of her maturity of her body. And then it's a new status that it's called bogeret, which means mature adult, which is the 12 years and 6 months. So all the manner of vows, of commitments, change. Now, another status we learn, which call the Erusin and Nisuin. Erusin is the time of the betrothed, especially in the ancient time, unlike our days that most of the time they combine the two. At that time it was a manner of betrothed. That moment, in a way, is preparation for her to move from the domain of the father to the partnership or with the upcoming husband, the groom. But it is not a matter of cohabitation or married. It's a status that it's in between, is the betrothed status. Later on, she changed her status by married to someone, and now she is under the roof of the husband. As long as they married, they are in that status. The question posted, if she made a commitment at a time in between, which means she betrothed arusa, na'ara ham'orasa, she betrothed, and for example, her age is 12 years and 3 months, which means it's an age of a transformation. Do we need both the father and the husband, soon to be fully husband, to annul her vow? It's enough to have one, and if it's one, what happened to the others? Furthermore, how do you treat the situation that one of them is no longer among the living? Do you compare the status of the father to the status of the husbands to be? Here is the dilemma. Baal meigaz gayez or miklish kalish. When you have this soon to be husband, does he in a way taking a scissor and cut away half of the vow, which means the cutting the vow, it's abrogation, it's annulment, or he is just weakening the entire vow? What's the real difference? Heicha kami bayalan. Let's understand the predicament. Let's use an extreme example, but it can lead us to understand the concept, the logical concept. Kegon denadra trei zeitin. She, meaning this na'ara me'orasa, this girl, for example, 12 years and 3 months old, that she committed herself to not to eat certain food, and the amount it was very specific, which is on purpose 2 olive values of certain food, which means olive values is called kezait. So you have here 2. So now you have a specification, you have a clear age, a framework of time, which is she is in between veshama arus ve'eferla. So the, how do you call it, the fiancé, the one who is engaged to her, he heard her word and he revoked it. He just expressed an annulment to that. Ve'achaltun. So as a result, since he annulled her vow, she is now eaten. I amrinan migaz gayez. If you say that his authority is to cut a half, because remember, we are speaking here about partnership, right? Between the father and the husband is an in between. It's like the domain of the transition. So it means you have here total olive kezait, because remember her commitment is for 2. Now if you tell me the husband cut, which means 1 left, lakya, so it means that she is in violation and deserve malkot for eating kezait. I amrinan miklash kalish. If you say that he weakened the entire vow by his expression of revocation, so guess what? Isura be'almau. It's expression of isur, of something that is forbidden, but you do not have here the concept of malkot. So based on this Gemara, the late Chebin Rav of Chebin, he tried to juxtapose another sugya. We learn several occasions in the Shas a fellow that was in a process of conversion. As you know, in the process of conversion for male, after going through a period of time of learning, he needs to do, if he's not, he needs to do the Brit Milah, and then he needs to do Tvilah, to duck himself in a mikveh. Meaning, it's a process. It's a process of learning, and then the Bet Din session, the Brit Milah, and Tvilah. For sure, there is discussion. What do you do in between? But here is the question. Mal velo taval. Someone who did the Brit Milah, but for some reason, not yet, he did not duck himself in the mikveh. So, what exactly his status? Is he a non-Jew? Is he a Jew? How you treated him? So, Reb Meir Eric was one of the very well-known posek. He said, in one hand, he is not Jewish. Why? Because he did not complete the process. By the same token, the argument here is that he is also not non-Jewish. So what's nafkamina? What's the difference? So, for example, in regards to Shmirat Shabbat, as you know, a non-Jew is obligated to do the 7 universal Noachide laws, to follow them. Yet, the other commandments which we have, the root, the other 606, remember that? Root is the numerical value of 606. The other commandments, which 606 plus 7 is 613, that applies specifically an obligation and responsibility for a Jew. So one of them is Shabbat observing. Since that person, he is not a complete, did not complete the process, so therefore he is not in that responsibility yet. So the same way they try to compare here, you see it also in the Ran, that do you call it half? When you call it half, meaning it's matter of hafara, of annulment, or it's kalush, kalush meaning you weaken the concept. Very similar, the book called Keren Ora tried to compare this discussion to another discussion in Tractate Zvachim. Anyway, the Ran asked, he brought a Rashba, who asked a question, why do you need the concept here of kezait, of the olive bark, and not isur kolshu, any amount, any something that's forbidden that she has done? So he said, we study a lot the concept of konamot, meaning the idea of commitment by expression of offering. So when it's come to Malkot, is specifically for something that exceeded olive oil measure, because that's under the category of shvu'ah, of taking an oath. So for example, the idea of bringing a korban me'ilah, a misuse of a sacred entity, it's for anything that exceeded kezait. So therefore, the Rashba explained that here the reason we use specifically shnei kezait, 2 olive oil, it's because that's applied to the concept of korban me'ilah and konamot. Rabbi Akiva Iger challenged that, and he said, why you go by the minimum of kezait if you dig in the concept of me'ilah? Concept of me'ilah meaning someone, again, we misuse a consecrated property, so you have the din of pruta, meaning something that carries some monetary value, and not necessarily kezait, the olive bark, and Rabbi Akiva here left it the tzarich iyun, something that it's still undissolved subject. Tashma, so here the Gemara tried to resolve this inquiry by bringing another braita. Matai amru meta baal, when did they say that the husband of that arusa, of that engagee, passed away? Nitrokna reshut la'av, so therefore the right he had to revoke a vow transferred to the domain of the father. So that's the transferring of domain is used the language of rikun, because it's like the Rosh explained, is like someone have a sackcloth and you emptied it, so he bring whatever the content, he bring it to somebody else. So here, when the husband passed away, is the right of annulment for his engagee, for his arusa, transferred to the father. So from now on, at this point, the father only can annul his daughter's vow. So that apply bizman shelo shama haba'al kodem shiamut. That happened when the husband did not hear about it, about her vow, prior to before his passing. Another option, or sheshama in the bachsed vehefer, or sheshama veshatak. So that's the way the Tosfot in the Rif said, umet bo bayom. And in this situation also it happened that after he was silent, he passed away on that very day. Zohi sheshaninu. That's exactly what we learn. Met habal, if the husband passed away at that period of time, nitrokna. Nitrokna meaning it's the revoke, it transferred the reshut, the right of annulment, from the husband, or you call him the fiancé, but for halachic category, call him husband because he accessed some rights, la'av, to the father. So if you remember, at the introduction I brought the famous moral and scholar and Dayan, the late Harav Meir Brandsdorfer, may he rest in peace. So in regard to that issue of the donor to a kollel, again, it's a fellow that verbally commit himself to a large sum of money for students to study during the summer vacation in the prayer for speedy recovery of his mother-in-law, and she passed during that period. So Rav Brandsdorfer, based on our sugya, said that he cannot back out his commitment. In general term, if you make a clear stipulation, if you said, look, I ask you to do something and that's my condition, is different. But here people already start studying and they commit themselves to the summer vacation. Those students, many of them were in a great need, right? They commit themselves to study in the summer. So even she no longer among the living, the fact that it was already concept and commitment, therefore he must follow his commitment in this case. But he elaborates on that in his responsa based on this situation that you have a half completion of a process. 68b, aval im shama vekiyem. However, if he heard and he said this matter of vow will be fulfilled, which means the husband of the betrothed young woman heard and he ratified the vow, which means that it was a clear manner of commitment and approval, או ששמע ושתק, or he heard and he was acquiesced, he displayed equanimity, he was silent, right? ביום שלאחריו, meaning that basically a fulfillment of the neder because it was the following day that he passed. So silent is considered a ratification of the vow. Therefore, ein yachol leafer. The father cannot nullify the vow. Why? Because again, the matter of hitroknut, since the engagee approve that vow, so that right cannot transfer to the father. That's the Rosh. So far what we see that we have a 4 different situation. That's based on discussion going to on page 70. Number 1, father annulled the vow and passed away. Number 2 is the husband annulled the vow and passed. Number 3 is the husband to be annulled and the father passed, or the father annulled the vow and the husband passed. So here our upcoming discussion is when that hitroknut, that transfer from one domain to another, and when it's not. Shama aviha vehefer la. The father heard, or he was made aware of, that the vow, and he nullified it. ולא הספיק בעל לשמוע עד שמת האב. Meaning the father annulled the vow, he passed before the husband heard about it. זוהי ששנינו, that's what we learn. מת האב, if the father died, לא נתרוקנה רשות לבעל. That if the father died, the right he had to revoke her vow does not transfer to the husband, which means the husband cannot annul the vow after he heard it, because the father is no longer among the living, and the right of the father is not transferred to the husband. Second scenario, Shama ba'ala ve'fer la. The husband heard and nullified the vow, but then ולא הספיק האב לשמוע עד שמת הבעל, and the father did not have the opportunity to hear the vow before the husband passed away. זוהי ששנינו. This is what we learn. מת הבעל, if the husband passed away, נתרוקנה רשות לאב. So the authority reverts to the father. So that's basically the opposite scenario of the first scenario. Again, it's like study logic, right? The husband can do a hafara, annulment, and he passed before the father heard. So again, you have hitroknut, you have the transferring of the domain to the father, and he can abrogate the vow. Third scenario, Shama ba'ala vehefer la. If the husband heard about her vow and he revoked it for her, ולא הספיק האב לשמוע, and the father did not manage to hear of the vow ad shemet, before he passed away. Ein habal yachol le'afer, the husband cannot nullify it, although she's no longer has a father. Why? And this is the beauty. She'ein habal mefer ela beshutafut. The whole right of the husband to nullify of the vow of his engagee has to come only of the manner of of the manner of the partnership with the father. So what's the chidush? The chidush that the father was alive in a case and the Baal was alive. So the moment he have afara, have annulment, he left kalush, he weakened that. So it means there is the big chidush, the big idea is that the husband cannot do it independently by himself. The opposite way, if the husband passed, it's transferred to the father. But in the reverse situation, it's not. In a way, it's not the same authority. 69, the fourth scenario, Shama aviha ve'ferla. Here you have the situation, the father heard about her vow and he nullified the vow for her. Velo hispik הבעל לשמוע עד שמת, and the husband somehow not have the opportunity to hear of the vow until, unfortunately, he passed away. So what happened? חוזר האב ומפר חלקו של בעל. So the father repeats and revokes the portion of the husband. So that's opposite than the previous scenario, because the father expressed annulment and the husband passed before he heard. So since the one who annulled, which is the father, is alive, so therefore his annulment is still in effect. Amar Rabbi Natan. Rabbi Natan tells us, good morning, hen divrei Beit Shammai. That's the view of Beit Shammai, which is after the passing of the husband, the father can have the right of the portion of the husband, and he can abrogate the husband's portion. Beit Hillel omrim ein yachol le'afer. Beit Hillel hold that in this situation the father cannot access the right of the portion of the father cannot have the portion of the husband. So therefore the father cannot annul that vow after the husband passed. That's the way the Ran explained. However, Beit Hillel omrim ein yachol le'afer. Beit Hillel said that the father cannot revoke the vow in this case. So what you see here, some rabbis try to compare it, good morning, to the law of Yerusha, the inheritance. What happened in Yerusha, that the father received, for example, it was a boshet. So if it's a boshet of his daughter, he receive, but not receiving as the Yerusha. Shma mina. So here you see as a final understanding. Le Beit Shammai meigaz gayez. If you follow Beit Shammai, the father in a way cut half of the neder, because the husband's part will not remain the same as it was. Beit Hillel miklash kalish. But according to Beit Hillel, he weakened the entire vow, and Shma mina, and that's the way we conclude that the husband nullification weakened the the general force of the vow, because the halacha follow Beit Hillel. So, based on that story, I heard from Rabbi Yosef Nachum Strom, say Torah scholar in Israel. So he brought a famous story about the Hasidic Rebbe Reb Meir Mipre Mishlan. He was very poor during his lifetime, and he gave all his money to poor people. So long after his passing, someone had a dream, and he dreamt he saw Reb Meir, etc., etc., and he committed himself to give money, large sum, to charity in memory of Reb Meir Mipre Mishlan. So he went and he asked a question of the community rabbi. The rabbi, that community was named is Shoel V'Meishiv. He wrote a book called Shoel V'Meishiv. He asked him a question: where should that money allocate? Is that din Yerusha, meaning that the sons, the children of Reb Meir Mipre Mishlan deserve that money, or should we give it to the Beit Midrash, to yeshiva, to his students? So he answered in short, he says, you have to remember the way that he behaved during his lifetime, and since during his lifetime he used to give it to the certain poor people, so you have to go the same way that he gave. He also offered himself to be the assistant to give it, but he said that it's not, you cannot hold it in any manner of din Yerusha. It's not something that you said that his children inherited it. Now, another important halacha I want to share with you this morning. It's the Rambam in Hilchot Nedarim, chapter 11. Rambam said, if a young woman betrothed if the young woman's betrothed heard a vow, ratified it, and died, or if he was silent throughout the day, and the vow was taken and died on the following day, then her father cannot nullify the vow. If the betrothed, meaning the engagee, did not hear the vow before he died, or if he heard it and was silent, meaning he was like acquiesce, and died that day, his authority revert to the father, who cannot then nullify the vow on this own. So this is a lot of halachot that you see also in the code, in Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah 234. But one of the point is the Abal Meifer B'shutafut Bilvad, which means if the young woman's soon-to-be husband, the betrothed, heard and nullified the vow, but her father died before he heard of it, the betrothed cannot nullify the father's portion, and the vow remains in effect because, as we say, that's the status of partnership.
Shuloim, Malachai, Shuloim, Malachai.